Welcome to Crack the Friendship Code. I am your host, Theodora Voss. My pronouns are her, she, hers. I am seated against a white wall with vinyl records hanging up behind me. I have long black hair today, and I'm a Black woman with a dark and warm skin tone. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're seasoned here, nice to connect with you again. I've been in the learning and development industry for over 13 years, and I've contracted for some of the largest companies in tech. I love learning and I love teaching. I've experienced so much of my own loss in life, from losing my mom at age 13 to my best friend passing away and going through a divorce all at the age of 26. I understand the importance of developing genuine friendships as a result. All of these experiences and lessons birth what you see now as Crack the Friendship Code. On our show, you're going to hear from myself and other women who have achieved success in different levels of their lives, whether it be career, business, or passions. Along the way, we have all discovered the importance of aligning our friendships with our purpose. And our hopes are that you too can ignite purpose aligned friendships and have more meaningful and genuine friendships. And with that, let me introduce today's guest. Just so you know, I say it every time, but it's so true. Every woman who is on our show is nothing short of amazing, wildly successful, and just an incredible human all around. So meet Shamaree Brissett, a marriage and family therapist turned intimacy coach and relationship expert. She specializes in empowering women to be fully uninhibited and fulfilled in their intimate and sexual relationships. Shamaree believes that everyone deserves genuine confidence, relationship satisfaction, and unlimited orgasms if they want them. She started Shamaree Lab LLC, relationship and intimacy coaching services, in 2021 in order to expand her reach as a provider. At Shamaree Lab, she combines reliable support, evidence-based knowledge, and experience along with accountability to help you obtain all that you deserve in relationships. As a sexual assault survivor, a modern Black woman, and a therapist, she combines personal and professional experience to best serve her clients. And with that, welcome, Shamaree.
Hey, hey, thank you for having me. So that was a lovely introduction. I'm Shamaree. My pronouns are she, her. And if you want a description of my background, I have it's very white, white wall and a very brown futon behind me and a very brown door. Um,
Very, 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 very.
it's very white and very brown.
Well, it's nice to have you on again. It's very, very nice to have you on again. I'm so excited for this episode because, so just for context, y'all, I've interviewed Shamaree on like several different podcasts before, and I don't think we've ever really like dived into like your purpose and like the journey that you've
Mm.
taken to get to where you are today because you have a very unique background and you're really helping people in a way that I think really is kind of discounted in relationships. And so I just find your story and your journey, excuse me, and your career really interesting. So with that, career I've noticed has kind of often been mistaken as synonymous with purpose, but career itself is sometimes just the vessel for actually,
Mm.
fulfilling your purpose. So for you, what would you say is your purpose?
Yeah. So when it comes to purpose, what comes to mind first and foremost is my purpose is to be fully and completely myself. And I think that a huge part of who I consider myself to be is someone who is very caring and compassionate, and a guide or an aid, a teacher to others. So being able to help other people, I'm a therapist, obviously, coach. So like that, I feel like is kind of a part of my purpose. And like you said, kind of aspects of that, being able to serve others by being myself.
I love that. I love that. Serve others by being myself. Yes, we all need to adopt a little bit more of that. I love that. I love that. So for you on your journey, what were some of like the limiting beliefs or mindsets that you kind of had to let go of in order to really pursue your purpose and show up as, yourself?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple at different stages throughout my life. So I'm very perfectionistic. I've been that way since I was a child. So that's very much a part of who I am and how I am. So being able to accept that everything's not going to be perfect and that I don't have to wait for things to be perfect before I begin something or before I try something. That has been something that I've had to learn to let go of, because it's like, well, if I could just fix this and like when I get to this point, then I can. And it's like, it's just holding me back. And then I'm not living in my purpose. I'm not doing the things that I should be doing. So that would be probably the number one limiting belief that I had, is that if it's not perfect, then it's not worth me doing. And so I had to really unlearn that and get rid of that. And then also, even after I know this, right? I'm a therapist. I'm working in school. They teach you a certain way, and like you have to be professional. You have to present yourself in a certain way, and when it comes to ethics and things like that, there's certain things that you can't do. So you can't market yourself. You can't seek out reviews or have people give you like you can't ask for these things, right? And like it's not okay. It's not a thing that you should do. So I really had to unlearn all of that as well, because people want to see that I'm a human, ultimately. So it's great that I have degrees. It's great that I know all these things, right? But that's not what people connect with. They don't really care what school I went to or like what my GPA was, what classes I took. They don't care about that. So I really had to kind of strip back to things that they told me in order to kind of learn a new way to do things. So those are probably the top two things that I had to do a lot of work around.
Well, and was that a part of why you made like that career shift?
I think part of it is because there, well, yeah, part of it. But the other part of it is I move a lot. And with therapy, I can only see clients that reside in the same state that I hold a license. And
Ah,
I've lived in like 4 different states at this point. So it's not really conducive to working with people long term. So that's the other reason. But yeah, I don't subscribe to the idea that I have to present myself in a certain way
mhm.
in order to be professional, to show that I know things and that I'm the expert. Because really, people know more about their life than I will ever know. So being a human is not going to make them feel like I can help them.
That's so true. That's so true. And I feel like a lot of people want to feel a connection to their therapist or to their coach before
Mm-hmm.
they engage in the first place, because you are sharing very deep-seated, especially in your line of work, you're sharing deep-seated information with people. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
really going deep, and having to trust you. So I think there's something to that. I like hearing everything, because it's like, hearing you talk about how you adopted things to your lifestyle, like even the fact that you move around and, you felt like you couldn't be yourself fully and show up. Like, I really like how
Mm-hmm.
you really adopted your career and made it your own. And it's allowing you
Mm-hmm.
to really like be yourself and flourish in your purpose. So I really dig that. Um, Okay, so now some of the deep the stuff that everybody's waiting for. The friendship stuff, because that's what y'all came for. So on your journey to figuring out your purpose and really again showing up as yourself, I can't emphasize that enough, because that is something that a lot of us struggle with. So the fact that that is a part of your purpose is huge. What were some
Mm-hmm.
of the friendships that you maybe had to part with or break up with on your journey?
Mm-hmm. So I think that well, the way that I see things, I don't allow a lot of people to get close to me. That might have to do with like my perfectionistic thing that I have going on, but I just don't allow a lot of people to see me. So like I would call people friends because that's an easier way to explain, oh, this is the person that I go to parties with, and this is the person that I met one time at dinner. Like I just like, oh, that's my friend. And I would say it because it's easy, but I think that I always knew on a deeper level that a lot of those people were not my friends. And so if you didn't know serious thoughts about that I have or like things that I've been through, then you weren't necessarily my friend. But I don't think that I was very clear with those boundaries as far as the other person maybe thinking that we were in a
Mm-hmm.
different space than what we were.
Yeah.
And because of that, sometimes people do get a little bit possessive, I guess, or like not wanting to share me. Like if like you're my best friend, I don't want you to have another best friend or things like that, sort of
Mhm.
like feeling like they're second to something or someone else would make them upset or like, like
Yeah.
it's a touchy thing. And so a lot of the things that I've experienced as far as loss of friendships were more so people that were like that. So like people that were in a different space than I was in, and maybe there wasn't a lot of communication around that. And so now we're in a fight because we didn't have clear communication about where we stand and what the obligations are. And so there were friendships like that that I would have to let go of.
Mhm.
And like, when your mom or like your boyfriend at the time is like, oh, that's not really your friend. But you don't necessarily see it in the
Yeah.
same way. So I maybe had a lot of those losses of friendships in that, okay, I realize we're not on the same path
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that you mentioned the possession part because that's one thing I feel like we end up missing out on really great people because we're trying so hard to possess them. And we can't possess another human being. Like we can get to experience
Mm-hmm.
them, but we can't possess them. I had a lot of experiences like that growing up too, like where people having Twitter beefs over me, and I was like, but neither one of y'all are my best friend. My best friend is like over here
Right.
quiet because she knows that we best friend. Like just crazy
Right.
stuff. And I'm like, so possession, I think we end up missing out on some beautiful experiences because we're trying
Mm-hmm.
so hard. And that applies to like relationships too, applies to, other situations. We
Mm-hmm.
can't possess someone. Um,
Right.
that's interesting. So looking back on those situations, is there a way that you would have necessarily like communicated that to people before? Because like that is something that comes up a lot that I've heard is like, how do we communicate where we stand with people? So were you,
Mm.
did you can you look back on situations and say like, oh, maybe I would have done it like this per se?
I think that maybe I would have had more conversations or even just asking more questions like, well, what is it that you would like to receive from this relationship? Like, what are your expectations of a friend or like, what does that look like for you? Because for everyone, it's different. And I actually had a conversation with one of my best friends um, just last week. And she considers herself like a needy friend. Like she likes to be able to speak to someone all of the time and like if they need something like to be able to like do that and be available pretty much whenever in need, and
Mhm.
I'm very much not that way. So like I don't call people, like I'll check in every so often, but I don't need to speak to you every day. I don't need to speak to you for hours. When we do
Mhm.
speak, like it can be a quick check-in to make sure that we're okay, and like I'm just really not that way, and being very clear about what the expectations are and where we can meet, I think is important. So I probably would have just asked more questions like, what do you even expect from a friend? What does that look like to you? Because maybe we're not on the same page there.
That part. Yeah, that's so true. Because sometimes, like, I've shared this story before, but like, had a friend that thought I was her best friend or would tell people I was her best friend. And I was like, we don't really do best
Mm-hmm.
friend things in my eyes. That's just I want to show
Right.
up for my friends. But looking at her past friendships, I was like, no wonder you think that I'm your best friend because you've had some not so great friendships and setting that
Right.
expectation. So that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
So, were there any like friendship norms or beliefs that you kind of had to like break up with as well during this phase?
I think that now I'm actually learning that friends can have different functions, but that doesn't mean I can't consider them a friend.
Mhm.
So like I said, I don't allow a lot of people to know me. So there's probably not going to be a lot of people who know me on a deep level. And like, I'm okay with that. I feel comfortable with that. As long as there's a few, like, and there has to be some, right? But not everyone needs to be on that level. But just because we're not on that level doesn't mean you're not a friend to me and that I can't be a friend to you. And so that's something that I'm still learning, and still getting used to in my adulthood. But I think that's something that is a ever evolving, ever changing sort of thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that a lot in our Crack the Friendship Code tribe. Like you stay in your lane is one of our courses. You don't have to be in like your friend doesn't have to be in every single thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there needs to be lanes. And that's what makes those friendships last a little bit longer too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, Shamari, tell us about any positive. like friendship experiences that really, impacted your journey towards embracing your purpose of showing up as yourself?
I think that because I've always been considered like I'm the strong friend, for a lot of people, I'm like the smart friend, like the wise one, the one that like you go to for advice. Like I'm a therapist now, so that further reinforces this idea to
Hmm.
people around me. They're like, oh, well, she probably has things together. She probably communicates really well. She probably, those sort of things. So like the strong one quotes. But I learned when I was going through a really tough time, maybe like 5-ish years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, just really tough time, not sure where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, just really struggling and being able to show that to people. Like, obviously, you have to do it in doses at first because I've never allowed myself to do that. And no
Yeah.
one's ever had to be on the other end of that when it comes to me. So I just didn't know if I would be met with assistance or if I would be met with, oh, well, you'll figure it out because you always figure it out. So I learned that if I do show that I can be met with the compassion and the guidance that I need, and that I don't always have to be the strong one. And so that was really important for me because that allows me to be more fully myself. Like I don't always have it together. Like I don't always
Yeah,
communicate well. I don't
that's fair.
like,
Yeah.
I just don't.
I mean, none of us do all the time, even the guys.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that you like had to like challenge yourself to be more vulnerable because that is hard as being, labeled the strong friend. Sometimes your friends,
Mhm.
you'll find that they don't have the capacity for it, or maybe they do, and we just have been, kind of shrinking back from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, Shamaree, it's your turn to turn the tables on me. This is your opportunity to ask any friendship related question that you may have or you may want a different perspective on.
Yeah, so I mean, in thinking, and like I said, I'm still trying to figure out like the idea that friends don't have to be like super deep, all my deepest secrets in order for me to consider you a friend. Like, how do you navigate like creating those types of friendships? And is it that you create boundaries or you just don't allow it to get deep? Like, at what
Hmm.
point do you have this sort of conversation to like categorize where these friends fall?
Yeah. So generally speaking, when we talk about categorizing our friends, we actually don't tell people the categories that they fall into, because the categories are really up to us. And the reason why I've designed it like this is so that way we're the ones owning our boundaries versus like,
Mhm.
oh, I told you you were only a travel friend, so why are you trying to dip into other areas of my life? That's up to us, you know what I mean, to decide. So,
Right.
like, for instance, I have a friend who is amazing and adventurous and fun, right? When it comes to certain areas. But when we finally like travel together, like just certain things weren't set up right away when I was supposed to like the day before. She's like, "Oh, there's something up with the room," and I'm like, "But you just did this week. You didn't do this like the
Right.
Capricorn of
Yeah.
me was like, what? That the plan and then I realized, okay, in this friendship, if I'm going to travel with her, if I really want to do that, I have to take more ownership of following up or planning the whole thing. And if I want to do that, then I can continue on traveling with her. If I don't want to do that, I decline certain invitations and I direct us to doing more local fun activities that I have the bandwidth and capacity to set up. So I kind of
Mhm.
developed an attitude of, hey, I'm gonna be at this place because I want to do this thing. If y'all want to show up, join me at this time. And that
Mhm.
seems to work for me, right? In that respect.
Mhm.
But I have to make sure I'm directing the energy and I'm
Right.
directing the boundaries to this. And that won't stop people from sharing deeper, more intimate things with you. But it's up to us to say, I'm just not going to engage in that way.
Mhm.
And that hasn't ended friendships, that hasn't severed anything, and it's kept the peace because this is the area you're good in and this is where we're good in together. And that has seemed to
Right.
really work for me. But yeah, I designed it that way so we enforce our own boundaries and we're not,
Mhm.
focusing on the other person to like step up to our
Right.
expectations because we can't change, you know the whole thing. You
Mhm.
can't change anybody else's expectations. You have to
Right.
adjust your behavior. So it's about us again. I just keep turning it back inward. And if you
Mm-hmm.
really can't operate like that, because some people, we still have a hard time like doing the black and white thing with our friends, then you got to
Yeah.
move on from the friendship, you know? So it's
Mm,
about us enforcing those boundaries, but we don't tell people what category they fall into. A lot of people aren't there yet. Once this becomes
mm,
normal language, I think then people will be able to say, you know, these are my friendship categories, and this is where I see us, and that's what I envision for
right.
people in the future. But right now, I don't think we're at the place where we could say, I just see you as this type of friend, because that'll definitely
Right.
end the friendship, and you miss out on a moment with someone, you know?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. But
Hmm.
I wish you could tell me it's not gonna hurt my feelings.
Well, I
Like,
know.
oh,
So
you
are
my
you
brunch
are you
friend.
a
Okay, yes,
yeah, you're
I'm
my
the
brunch
brunch
friend.
friend. Like,
Exactly.
because you probably my brunch friend too, and like I would be okay with
Yeah.
it.
Well, and I
But
think
it
there's
makes
like
sense.
playful ways to say it too. Like, you know, like it comes out over time what the function is. It's just
Yeah.
you don't want to be like, you're just this type of friend. And they're like, I thought I was deeper than that. We
Right.
all think we're deeper
Yeah.
than what we really are to people sometimes, you know?
Right. Yeah. That
Well,
makes
this has
sense.
been awesome. I appreciate how like vulnerable you've been on this episode, and just sharing some of your own thoughts and feelings and journey. I think, you know, for there are a lot of people that are in your shoes where they've been the strong friend, or they've had to hold things together. They've had, you know, they've had to assess how close to let people get to them. So I really appreciate you
Hmm.
sharing your perspective on this. And Shamaree will be back because we always invite her back.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
All right, bye, y'all.